Anthony Hopkins is one of those rare artists who feels truly timeless. In Britain and far beyond, his name stands with the greats. He didn't just play Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. He remade the idea of a movie villain, using restraint, precision, and unnerving calm to create a character people still talk about. That performance etched him into global culture. But the story of how he got there began far from red carpets and award shows. He came from a working-class home in Wales, a childhood marked by loneliness and self-doubt. From that quiet beginning, he built a career on discipline and craft, becoming a knight of stage and screen who elevated the very idea of acting. With the economy of a master musician, he uses a look, a pause, a shift in breath to pull audiences into a character's inner life. The intensity and truth he brings to each role didn't come out of nowhere. They were forged in solitude, sharpened through struggle, and tested by real-world loss. Behind the acclaim is a harder ledger, a long battle with alcohol that nearly ended everything, family fractures that never fully healed, and unbelievably homes destroyed by fire twice. At 87, with 2 Oscars and a knighthood, he carries triumphs and scars side by side. Honors don't erase history, but they do show how far he climbed. If his work has ever moved you, consider this a quiet salute to a truly extraordinary artist. Sir Philip Anthony Hopkins was born on December 31st, 1937, in Margam, Port Talbot, Wales. His father, Richard Hopkins, was a baker. His mother, Annie Muriel, kept the household steady. The family was respectable and hardworking, but school was a trial. Letters wouldn't sit still on the page. Teachers labeled him slow. Classmates kept their distance. I was hopeless at school. I was called stupid. I had no friends, he would later say. Feeling unwanted leaves a mark. He found refuge in the arts. At 12, he discovered the piano. The keys felt like companions. He painted with fierce concentration. These weren't hobbies. They were lifelines. Then, at 14, he saw another path. Richard Burton, another Port Talbot son, had already conquered stage and screen. Burton proved that someone from their streets could reach the world. A door opened in Hopkins' mind, theater, film, a future beyond the classroom that had made him feel small. That belief became fuel. After the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, graduating in 1957, and 2 years of national service in the British Army, Hopkins entered RADA. The doubts followed him there, but the work began to crystallize. The National Theatre under Laurence Olivier became his crucible. Surrounded by heavyweights, he often felt like an imposter until the night fate intervened. When Olivier fell ill during the Dance of Death, the young understudy took the stage. It could have been a disaster. Instead, it was ignition. Hopkins didn't merely cope with the pressure, he commanded it. The performance landed with such force that word spread. A new powerhouse had arrived. That moment wasn't luck. It was the dividend of lonely, meticulous hours. He hadn't stumbled into greatness. He had prepared for it. Film came calling. In 1968, he played Richard the Lionheart in The Lion in Winter, regal yet wounded, and proved his presence could carry a movie. The world saw a rising star. Inside, old restlessness lingered, the long echo of a boy who had never felt fully accepted. The public watched triumph. He wrestled with the cost. Hannibal Lecter sealed it. With less than 20 minutes on screen, he made cinematic history, winning the Academy Award and redefining how terror can be portrayed, quietly, intelligently, with perfect control. That role vaulted him to the peak. But at the top, the air can be thin. Schedules devoured days and nights. Meals and sleep dropped away. He later said bluntly, "Fame is nothing. Success is nothing. They don't fill you up." When the sets went dark and the flashbulb stopped, he often returned to a room that felt empty. In that emptiness, the bottle called louder, and yet the work deepened. He moved across an astonishing range: dutiful servants, obsessive artists, kings and clerics, and ordinary men under extraordinary strain. Then, late in life, he achieved something unprecedented. In The Father at 83, he portrayed a man slipping into dementia. The performance was devastating and humane, earning him a second Oscar and making him the oldest Best Actor winner ever at 83. On television, as Dr. Robert Ford in Westworld, he showed the same voltage, measured, formidable, still capable of surprise. The outside world saw mastery. Privately, alcohol was taking over. By the mid-1970s, blackouts, lost hours, and drained energy were routine. His first marriage suffered. His bond with his daughter, Abigail, thinned to almost nothing. Then came a winter night he never forgot. He woke behind the wheel with no memory of how he'd gotten there. The abyss was suddenly close. In December 1975, he walked into a support meeting, scared, uncertain, but ready. One day at a time became his rule. It's been a miracle, he would say later. I can't believe it, that one day at a time I've stayed sober. Sobriety didn't undo the past, but it saved the future. The distance with Abigail never healed. Asked about her, he has said quietly, I don't have any contact with her. It's her choice. Life is life. No excuses, no barbs, only acceptance. He speaks to others about addiction without showmanship. Sobriety is fragile and daily. I'm just a lucky man, he often says, and he means it. Success and home life didn't always share the same rhythm. The first marriage ended in 1972. The deepest loss wasn't legal, it was paternal. Being a father requires presence. He wasn't there, and you can't fill that chair with trophies. A long second chapter began with Jennifer Linton. She was steady and patient. Friends noticed he laughed more easily. Their life wasn't flashy. Shared meals, quiet evenings, the grace of ordinary days. But the work pulled him away, and his old habit of retreating into himself returned. The absence of children grew heavy over the years, especially for her. He later said softly, I'm not good at relationships. I withdraw. There was no scandal, just distance and exhaustion. After nearly 3 decades in 2002, the marriage ended with the gentlest kind of heartbreak, the slow kind. Time alone, it turns out, cannot save love. Presence can. In 2003, at 65, he married Stella Arroyav, a Colombian-born artist with warmth and light. She didn't arrive to fix him. Those battles were already fought. She came to walk beside him. With her, sobriety felt like celebration, not punishment. Age felt like a season of peace, not decline. Breakfast by a window, a walk in the garden. Evenings at the piano, playing not for crowds, but for the person who listens most closely. There were no children together, and in that absence, there was a kind of freedom, the chance to love the life they actually had. He speaks of Stella with open gratitude, energy, balance, joy. He cherishes the role of Stella's husband as much as any title he's worn. Fate was not done testing him. In the early 2000s, a London home burned, books filled with notes, paintings, photographs, scripts, gone in under an hour. In 2018, California wildfires came dangerously close to another property. And in 2025, the worst happened again in Pacific Palisades. A complete loss. Once is agony, twice defies belief. For most people, a house is just a structure. For him, home was where sobriety put down roots and calm returned. Watching the roof go and the walls fall again was almost unbearable. He summed up the outcome with a survivor's clarity. Things can be replaced. Life cannot. He rebuilt. He moved forward. That has been his constant. When the curtain drops, he walks to the next mark and starts the next scene. Not all losses roar. Some arrive in silence. When his father, Richard, the baker with flour-dusted hands, died, Hopkins called it the worst thing that ever happened to me. No honor shields a son from that sight. When his mother, Muriel, passed, the last link to childhood was gone. He returned to her empty home and felt like the house itself no longer recognized him. The world saw a legend. He felt unmoored. Age brings a slower kind of loss. At 87, he is frank about memory sometimes slipping and names hovering out of reach. The father cut so deeply, in part, because he poured that fear into it. At the piano, fingers occasionally hesitate before old melodies. He meets all of this without theatrics, walks with Stella, painting in the studio, gratitude for an ordinary dawn. Life is very short, he says, not as a complaint, but as a reminder. Today he lives in the United States with Stella Arroyav, valuing privacy and stability. Even after early 2025, fire forced another rebuild. Public estimates often put his net worth around $160 million. That comes from decades of work and smart real estate choices, not flash. He once owned a Malibu Cape Cod-style estate, 5 bedrooms, a guest house, a pool house on a bluff, later sold for roughly $10.5 million. In Pacific Palisades, his primary residence was estimated at $7 million, and in 2019 he bought a neighboring 1940s colonial for about $6 million. His Los Angeles properties have been valued in the tens of millions. He doesn't flaunt any of it. Fire taught him that the grandest walls can fall. He measures wealth now in calmer ways: time, health, love, work that still matters. Health is handled like a roll, methodically. Regular checkups, little sugar, early nights. Above all, the sobriety vow from 1975 still standing. Music and painting are his daily therapy. He accepts the slower step without surrender. Gratitude is the through line. When he steps out, premieres, exhibits, charity events, he carries the stillness of someone who has survived himself. He chooses roles like heirlooms, a script that stirs him, a voice that needs breath, a story worth telling. The art remains his bridge to the world. Behind it all is simplicity: a meal with Stella, sunlight in the kitchen, a piano at dusk. The shadows remain, the ashes of homes, the distance with his daughter, the quiet left by his parents, but they no longer define him. He turned pain into discipline, loss into resilience, and solitude into creation. Scars became blueprints, 2 Academy Awards, BAFTAs, Emmys, Olivier Awards. A knighthood. The oldest Best Actor winner at 83, those are facts. Harder to measure is what his performances did for audiences. Unsettle, comfort, illuminate. From a Welsh baker's son to Hannibal Lecter's measured gaze, his life feels like a circle, ordinary labor transformed into extraordinary art. He holds British and American passports, but he belongs wherever there's a canvas, a piano, or a story that deserves care. At 87, Anthony Hopkins is not only a master actor, he's a survivor who turned addiction into sobriety, loss into gratitude, silence into music, and fragility into strength. His message is simple and earned. Curtains fall, and then, if you're willing to stand up, another act begins. If a scene of his has ever stayed with you, that's no accident. It's the mark of a life lived deeply and with grace.